We want to tell the world, we want to tell all the Western world that we have history, we have culture, we have traditions. And the food they are eating now and the Israeli are pretending that it's food. It's not their food. This food is ours. And this book prove it.
The fact that Palestinians know how to use different plants that grow in the wild, plants that many of us would consider worthless weeds, testifies to the very long connection Palestinians have with the land. Knowledge of plants and how to cook them is passed down through many generations, and it is something that artificial, rootless settler colonizer cultures like Israel know nothing about. Your book honors Gaza's people. It is clear to me that Israel has deliberately been reducing the population of Gaza to starvation. This is because Israel is not just content to kill Palestinians, it wants to eliminate their identity. Welcome to Lima, who's with us.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us for the book club on Palestine. Meet the author with Lima Shawa, the author of A Taste of Gaza, I think is the right pronunciation, Food and Traditions from Home. This is the beautiful book. Lima, I felt deeply moved and honored to read the stories that open your beautiful book. As I was reading about the traditions you describe with such love and such color, I could almost smell the food and hear the music. The way you describe celebrations and family and community traditions brings them to life and invites the reader to have a glimpse into what life was like in the Gaza of your childhood. Your stories and recipes reveal a rich and ancient culture. Food and traditions don't lie. Food and recipes evolve over long periods of time, and it is very clear that Gaza has always had its own unique cuisine. As you say at the start of the book, Gaza's cuisine was found to be even more diverse than the cuisine in the West Bank. The recipes you share in the book have been passed down in families and communities for many generations. Food in Gaza has been so important to mark the seasons, the celebrations of weddings, the traditional dishes of iftar during the months of Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, the day of Al-Sayyid Hashim, sorry about my pronunciation, and many other special days and festivals commemorating events and traditions from the experience of the local community. Your book celebrates Palestinian cuisine's genius for transforming humble, available ingredients into something delicious. I'd never heard of the edible plant called purslane until I read about it in your book. The fact that Palestinians know how to use different plants that grow in the wild, plants that many of us would consider worthless weeds, testifies to the very long connection Palestinians have with the land. Knowledge of plants and how to cook them is passed down through many generations, and it is something that artificial, rootless settler colonizer cultures like Israel know nothing about. Food is not just about survival, it's about spirit and soul, community and connection between people and their environment. Reading your stories made me realize once again how impoverished the Israeli culture I grew up in was. Settler colonizers have no real connection to the landscape they occupy, and they don't have stories that attach to it like the indigenous people who have had thousands of years of continuity of culture and experience. I realized how much Israel has forced a false culture on a society that it created artificially while pushing out the indigenous people of the land that they were determined to occupy. Israel and the early Zionists had attempted to erase Palestinian culture in many ways. Like all colonizers and settler colonizers, they tried to convince themselves and the world that the Palestinian people didn't exist as a distinct people. Israel has stolen and appropriated Palestinian dishes. Some dishes that I grew up with as a child and that I was made to believe were Israeli were in fact part of Palestinian cuisine. And yet when I came across my first Palestinian cookbook, I realized I knew nothing about Palestinian culture or cuisine, despite living less than an hour away from the next Palestinian town. You mentioned with nostalgia and sadness how much the traditions you remember from childhood have changed, how modern ways of doing things began to replace traditions. All cultures evolve and change over time, but what's painful and heartbreaking is that Gaza's culture was not allowed to change naturally and organically. Israel has been interfering with Gaza and has worked to destroy the population of Gaza for decades, breaking its community and everything that made it unique. What Israel has been doing in Gaza is an integral part and continuation of Israel's settler colonial aim to empty all of Palestine from Palestinians and replace them with what Israel defines as Jews. Your book honors Gaza's people, a people who lived with an abundance of food and spirit. It is clear to me that Israel has deliberately been reducing the population of Gaza to starvation and to reliance on food parcels from the West. This is because Israel is not just content to kill Palestinians, it wants to eliminate their identity. Your book is especially important now more than ever because it is a way to preserve traditional recipes and ensure they are not forgotten. It is not just a cookbook, it is a statement and it is a cornerstone for the future. When the exclusively Jewish state and its settler colonial system are finally dismantled, and the Palestinians can finally return to their land, inshallah, these recipes will provide cultural continuity despite the death and displacement of so many people. Your book is such an important way to keep Palestinian culture and voices alive through food and storytelling. We are so grateful to you, Lima, for joining us today, live from Jordan. Everyone in the audience feels a strong sense of kinship with the Palestinian people in Gaza and all of Palestine, and it is a privilege to meet you and have the opportunity to hear you speak to us. Lima, please tell us about your reasons for putting this book together, this beautiful book together, and the timing of it. You told me, and I also read in your acknowledgements, that A Taste of Gaza is practically a Shawa family project. Please tell us something about your family and share with us stories of your life in Gaza and anything you'd like to tell us. Welcome, Lima. Please.
Thank you, Abigail. First of all, I would like to say good evening for everybody. I would like to thank for giving me this opportunity to participate in this influential program and to be part of it. And thank you very much, Abigail, for your warm and kind words and introduction. This book was really a family project. We didn't mean it to be, but that's what happened. I'm the author, my cousin Noura, the publisher, my cousin Jason from Gaza, the photographer, another two photographers from Cyprus, Falak Omar Shawa, Falak Faiz Shawa. The cover photo is Ali Shawa. And we have the sponsor. It was sponsored by my cousin Omar Shawa. So all of us really, the editor was Fadia Shawa. We were all cousins. It seems we put all our hearts in this book to make it real. But I have to mention that we have few friends, photographers from Gaza who participate, like Omar Qatta and Muhammad Sharif. And I always think of these people, these three photographers who were really big help to us, if they are still alive and if they can they survive life in Gaza. I don't know. I don't want to start talking about it. I will not stop. This book was a dream for me. I was dreaming to write it, but I didn't dare to fulfill this dream. But one day, my cousin Noura asked me to do this. This book, we want to tell the world. We want to tell all the Western world that we have history, we have culture, we have traditions. And the food they are eating now, and the Israeli are pretending that it's food. It's not their food. It's ours since hundreds of years. The hummus, my great grandparents used to do it and cook it and eat it. falafel is the same. And many, shakshuka, for example, I was surprised that the shakshuka is there. It's not their food at all. And why they want everything for themselves? Why don't say that we can share it with others?
No.
This food is ours. And this book prove it. I also write this book so I can save and keep the traditions and the heritage of us. It's a heritage to us. When I started writing the book, there was no war in Gaza at that time. But I just want to pay tribute to Gaza, my hometown, and to take opportunity to speak about Gaza and about the people there and the traditions there. This was the reason. And to save and keep the tradition for our grandchildren. We want them to know their history and the life we had. So this is important, and this is the reason why we made it in English. First of all, we want the Western people to read and know about us, and second, for the children who are born outside the Arab country. So these will not have the opportunity. If it's in Arabic, they can't read it and they will not know about it. Before I start talking more about the book, I would like to introduce myself. As I said at the beginning, I'm a pure Gazan from pure Gazan parents. I was born and raised in Gaza. I finished my school years there too. Except for 2 years, I went to the Friends Girls' School in Ramallah. Why? Why did I leave and go there? Because of the Israeli occupation 1967. Gaza was boiling, and the West Bank, of course, and there were lots of demonstrations and curfews, strikes, so school couldn't be regular, of course. They are kept closing and opening. So the family decided that we Palestinians have nothing except our education. So for the sake of our education, the family decided to move us to Ramallah, to the Friends Girls' School. So I went with other cousins there for the 2 years I spent there. 1971, I got married. And I was blessed with my 3 children. I learned French, some Hebrew, and studied sociology at the Islamic University. 1989 was a turning point for me and my family. It was the Intifada, the first Intifada, the uprising. So again, there were no regular schools for my children, and demonstration, curfews, strikes. It was really horrible. And many young people were the Israeli put them in jail. Others, like what happened with my children, they were beaten until they faint. So we took the hardest decision of our life to take the children and move to Amman, Jordan. My husband stayed there in Gaza for his work, and I moved with 3 teenagers. Of course, he used to come and visit us every month for a few days, but it was a very, very hard mission. But I fulfilled it. Alhamdulillah, thank God.
Alhamdulillah.
In Jordan, my children finished high school, enrolled in universities, so I felt it's an opportunity for me to go back to study. So I enrolled in college also, Jordanian University, and I was graduated with a bachelor degree of psychology at the age of 45. I spent my life in volunteer work in Gaza and in Jordan too. I practice yoga since 33 years, and I go to aqua aerobics classes. I worked also in my cultural part, and I enrolled in Toastmasters Club. I stayed there from 2005 up till now. Now, in my book, A Taste of Gaza, my fourth child, I always like to call it my fourth child. In this book, culture, folklore, and food were combined together to tell the story of our Gaza. From 100 years ago until now. But I didn't dare to fulfill it. I'm talking about the book. So I decided to make this book when my cousin Nora, the publisher of Rimal Publication, visited me in Jordan and asked me to be the master of ceremony for the launching of Mrs. Widad Qawar's book, Threads of Identity. I agreed. I did it. I finished the mission. It was a mission to present such a great author and such a book. It seems that Noura was impressed from my work, and then she asked me to write a book about Gaza, food and traditions. I said, what? I can't write a book. This is a big project. She said, no, you can. You are the only grandchild, the only cousin of us who stayed in Gaza most of his life. I said, wow. I became happy for the idea and enthusiastic, really. She said, we'll help you. We will support you. So I put the hat of the author on and I start writing. Dear attendees, please lend me your ears to read the introduction from my book so you will have an idea about my thoughts, my feelings when I started writing. Before I started to write about food and traditions of Gaza, my home, I have mixture of feelings, happiness, nostalgia, and laughter, yet also deep sadness. As I began, memories flooded back, events, family, neighbors, friends, and the wonderful smell of home. Echoes of laughter and tears of those bygone years. I have learned most about food and cooking from my late grandmother, with whom I have lived many years. She was an amazing cook who could turn simple ingredients into succulent meals. I loved them all, but especially her mlokhia and her ka'ik with sumsum, a special cake with sesame seeds. In 1999, Monira Klebo from Jerusalem visited me in Gaza, and she told me that she's a dietitian from the Jerusalem Hebrew University, and she's coming here to Gaza for a survey about the variety of food in comparison with the West Bank. To my surprise, the results showed that the Gaza Strip has more variety than the West Bank because our cuisine includes seafood, of course, we're on the sea, hot chili, rabbits, ducks, turkey, and different vegetarian dishes that are not common in the West Bank. Starting to write was not easy at the beginning, as it needed efforts, lots of concentration, and the big problem was my computer skills. So I depended on my children, and I kept asking and checking. I know I gave them headaches, but they were good kids. They were supportive. I kept calling all the people around to know about food, about the food and also the traditions. I used to call my late mother the aunts in Gaza, the aunts in Amman, Jordan, friends, old neighbors. I even called a Christian neighbor who's in Gaza now, living in the States, and check with him for details about their feasts. I like to mention here that A Taste of Gaza turned out to be, as I told you, a family project. And this book consists about 5 chapters or parts. It shows all pictures, feasts and celebrations, the 4 seasons, and last, a pottery, and at the end, kitchen. I'll give you a quick idea about the context of each chapter. First, I'll talk about the old pictures. I love the pictures in this book. First, I'll talk about my parents' picture in their wedding day and their wedding clothes. It's a beautiful picture, and they were really beautiful in this picture. There is also a picture, one for my maternal and the other for paternal grandparents with the families. And another cute picture, I always love it and love to see it. It's the picture for my paternal grandparents sitting on the stairs of their entrance, surrounded by their beautiful garden, and just sitting beside each other, full of harmony and sweetness for both of them, old people, but they were in real harmony. They looked so beautiful. Of course, another picture showed the religious tolerance in Gaza between all religions, as this picture was for my maternal grandfather, who was the mayor of Gaza, and he was holding a farewell party for the Bishop of Gaza, Bishop Rishmawi. His term was ended and he has to go back to Bethlehem. Of course, there are other pictures for dishes, food dishes, and for the potteries. Second chapter talked about feasts and celebrations. This chapter portrays the traditions of weddings from my grandmother until the present. I wrote the songs. They used to sing it, especially the song when the mother dance with the relatives, friends, and neighbors, and they used to hold candles with their hands and start dancing on special songs. And of course, the main songs for the bride when she danced with her beautiful long white dress. These songs are still, up till now, we sing them and we use them in our weddings in Gaza, beside the modern songs which are going on now. Those weddings of the old days used to be unmixed, non-mixed weddings, ladies alone, and men sit in another room waiting and just listening to the music. But when the bride and the groom enter the liwan, which is the hallway, in every house there is a big hall. We call it liwan, and weddings in winter especially usually make them in these long liwans. If it's in summer, of course, there is the garden and there is the roofs of the houses too. So when they enter, the bride and the groom, the men come, shake hands and congratulate them, and of course offer gifts, which is usually money or jewelry. They these relatives, the men stay about half an hour, 45 minutes, then they go back to their room. These men usually are the immediate relatives of both sides. Sometimes the house of the groom's father is not big enough to hold a big party like a wedding. Immediately, neighbors and relatives and even friends offer their houses if they are big enough to accommodate all this number of as a wedding. I like to mention that I talked about feasts, our feasts, the Muslims and the Christians' feasts. For Muslims, it's very important for us, the holy month of Ramadan. I talked about it and how things go in it, and the traditions, the food, the songs the little kids sing in the streets after the iftar, after sunset, and breaking the fasting. And I talked about Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha. Then I talked about Christmas and St. Barbara feast, and of course Easter. And how we visit each other during these feasts, and we exchange food and gifts. The first chapter is beautiful one. I just love it. I enjoyed writing it so much. It's the 4 seasons, as it is really wonderful to live in a city where the 4 seasons are vivid and individually unique. I love this chapter. I started with autumn. Autumn and how it is the season of abundance, the season of fresh pressed olive oil and guava from Khanunis, plum dates from Deir el-Balah. And I talked about the delicious jam we make from the dates, the red dates, which we have in Deir el-Balah, of course. I talked about the sardine and the seafood and the migrating quails on their way to a warmer place. Winter. Winter brings back memories and nostalgia of warm families around heaters, and this conflict with what we have seen during the past 2 winters in Gaza, and the torn up tents of torrents of water that muddied the area for the displaced people. Another paragraph from the book about winter. I love winter in all cases. The paragraph now. These heaters were stoves of charcoal, wood or gasoline or gas. They had multiple purposes beside heating. People used them for cooking, toasting bread, and warming water. In the evening, family and friends gathered around the stoves, or what we call kanoon or man'al, chatting, giggling, and listening to folklore, to folk tales. That aroma of the lemon and orange zest burning on the amber will forever live in our minds and hearts. So many unforgettable aromas, even that of spilled coffee over the charcoal. Winter evening were full of entertainment. The women gathered and played the oud, cards, barjis, and when they simply sit chatting, their hands were never idle, constantly knitting or crocheting, which was also the case when they visited one another in winter times. They all brought along their needles and yarn, and the hostess would join too. Rainy, cold days never prevented families from going out for picnics, to the orchids, to the orchards, and orange groves, where they would start a bonfire and enjoy the day. Besides that, they drove to the beach and to the old port. I do miss this rainy winter. I do miss the rainy winter days by the sea. I was in my own world, gazing at the rough big waves, being thumped by the heavy rain. Finish, ended. Now, spring. I draw a colorful picture here for villages in spring, like Beit Hanun, which has been completely demolished. This town was the food basket of all the Gaza Strip. It was famous for its orange and lemon groves, also trees of almonds, apricots, peaches, and the aroma, vegetables of course, and the aroma of the blossoms of trees used to fill the air. Summer is the season of weddings, picnics, vacations, camping at the seashore, or at the citrus groves, and the season of watermelon, mangoes, and the blossoms that have become fruits. From the book. Many years ago, Gaza was less populated, with less cars and buses. But ever since the Nakba, 1948, the population has grown steadily as families from Palestine sought refuge in Gaza. This tripled the number of people, and more shelters and refugee camps were built. But despite this, up till now, up till the 60s, it was possible to hear the sounds of the roaring waves at night. With time, even this faded away. Then, third chapter talked about potteries, al-fawakhir as we call it in Gaza. Al-fawakhir is an ancient craft that Gaza was famous for. I don't know if this ongoing war has left any of the factories for these potteries. Thank you, Abigail, for showing the picture. Gaza was a major exporter and manufacturer in the area. It also showed how pottery flourished until the Second World War, when aluminium replaced clay. I also write the names of the utensils, household utensils, like the urn carrying the water, or pots for cooking, for preserving, and for storing food. Gaza was also famous for its ancient pottery, which was excavated and then taken by Moshe Dayan to his house in Tel Aviv and added to his private collection. Now, to the kitchen. It is a beautiful chapter. In kitchen, we have 94 recipes between soups, salads, poultry, meat, seafood, pantry, desserts, and beverages. Soups are not much in the Gazan cuisine because Gaza is a warm area. Like most of Palestine, we don't have so much soups. So I wrote about 4 kinds. First of all, and the most important of them is the lentil soup. Lentil soup is very important for us in winter and during the month of Ramadan. Also cracked wheat soup, vermicelli soup, tomato soup with meatballs. Salads, we have many salads, but I'm going to take about the top of them, which we call it degga. Degga salad, we make it and we serve it with a pottery, with a clay bowl. It contains the following: chopped onion, dill seeds, some fresh dill if available, pinch of salt, 1 green hot pepper. We crush all these in the clay bowl with a wooden pestle, and then we add chopped tomatoes, crush and mash with a pestle until combined. Then we add some lemon and mix with a spoon. Then sprinkle small pieces of white cheese and a drizzle of olive oil. It is very delicious.
I can taste it.
It is, and we usually serve it with Arabic bread. And you can serve this salad also beside any dish you like. Vegetarian. Vegetarian are very popular in Gaza, and they are called somi. Somi comes from Siam, which means fasting. This especially because of our Gazan Christians. In their fasting, usually they don't eat meat or any kind of poultry or anything like this. They prefer food without it and only with olive oil. So most recipes are seasonal because and all of them, as I said, with olive oil. For example, we cook a dish called rumaniya. This rumaniya, usually we do it in autumn, the season of the pomegranate. Then fresh asparagus at the season of winter. This asparagus usually grow under the cactus. They take it and then they cook the eggs with it. Also, we have the season of Swiss chard. In winter, we cook it with lentil, and then comes many other dishes. There is something I like to mention also. The reason for having all these dishes, also Gaza, all over the years, faced many wars. And of course, when there is war, there will be shortage of food, especially the meat and the poultry. So this is another reason. Then I talked and wrote about meat and poultry. Usually, we Gaza, or all the Palestinians really, can turn any vegetable into delicious, succulent meal when we add meat or poultry or even fish sometimes. It depends on the recipe. And also, we can turn any vegetable into delicious mahshi when we stuff this vegetable with rice and meat. I wrote about the typical Gazan dishes also, like fattah with meat chunks, gidra also with big pieces with chunks of meat. But this gidra has a funny story because we share it with the people of Hebron. Hebron is very near to us, to Gaza. So we do it and they do it. And we always quarrel which one is the more delicious and which one started before the other. I always try to be diplomatic and not to lose my nerves and starting defending our gidra. So I always say each has his flavor and both are very good and very delicious. I try to do this. But in fact, the difference between us and them is the spices. We, the Gazan, love to use too much spices. We like spicy food. We add chili to our food. So this was the real difference between us and them. And of course, we put too much garlic and onion in our food.
There's not too much garlic ever.
Wallah, we do, yeah. We use garlic.
I love garlic.
We use basil. We use basil too much. We use it in our food. Yeah.
Okay.
This is excuse me.
Lima, do you want to take some questions from people? What do you think?
Okay.
So who's had this? Brandon. Hi, Brandon.
I just wanted to thank you for such a wonderful description, and it struck me. I have never been to Gaza, Lima, but I've been to the West Bank and um, helped bring in the zaytun and had those wonderful breakfasts spread out on the blanket under the trees, and a lot of those people in the place I went to, they had moved from other places after 1948 and had moved around and ended up in villages in the West Bank. And they were very proud of the cuisine from the areas that they originally came from. It was really important, and they spoke about, where these recipes came from, and it was, and they could remember in real detail, who taught them the recipe. It was a grandmother or somebody, and also the types of food that people had in those areas. So I really picked up on what you said about how important food is, and how far back this culture goes. So I just wanted to thank you, and just to say that many people I've been with in the West Bank particularly, they hold on to their culture very with real intent, and they very much want to pass that on to the next generation as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, Lima, would you like to take the last couple of minutes to say something about your experience today, to say something you may not have said, anything at all? It's your space.
It's a very nice experience to me. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your invitation. I like it, and this is the first time for me to speak when interview to speak in English. This is my first time. The other interviews were in Arabic, so I didn't worry. But today I did. This time I did some effort, but I enjoyed it, and I don't mind repeating interviews in Arabic. So I like it. I like talking. Always I like to talk about my fourth child, A Taste of Gaza. I enjoyed this book, writing it and talking about it, and having you with me, sharing this moment. Really, it's beautiful.